From across the globe, the Unborn Radio is bringing you the sounds you want to hear.
Obviously, we brought up the Argentinian founder earlier on.
Yeah.
The Beast. How did you feel when the Beast went against you and finally getting your redemption?
The redemption was a good feeling. When he went against me, it was pretty nerve-wracking because you don't know what it does to the club. What happened? Luke and the Beast are the same person. I might have used their name intertwined. And at some point, he was the co-founder. He wanted to become the president and lead the club. So he wanted to start a new club. Started to ask members, would you jump ship with me, and started to handing out officers jobs to people who he knew would be willing to switch for that. So at that point some people joined ship with him, and he asked other crews to attack us. So he made alliances with crews and with Hell's Angel clubs and with Sons of Anarchy clubs to fight with us. So our club got attacked a lot, and we're not only about the fighting, so I was pretty afraid what it would do to the club with losing 1/3 of our members and, getting into fights all the time. And in the end, it worked out perfectly because those 20 people stayed loyal, and we really worked hard to get the club back to where it was. But at that point, it was pretty nerve-wracking.
And then a few years later, when the Beast went into hiding, you could speak. Yeah. We tracked him down, and you can take from there.
Yeah, we did. It was he went into hiding for a few years after he started to lose those battles, and people started to leave his club, so his club failed. And he went into hiding for like 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 maybe. He just was like off the radar, and we knew he was still playing GTA, but he switched club to club, but we never could get a hold of him because as soon as he saw someone of us joining or some people he knew were close to us, he was gone. And at some point he asked to join the MC, who was an ally of us, but who respected us and who we had a good relationship with. And they told us, well, he's trying to join us, what would you think of it? And they pretty much helped us to trap him by saying, they told Luke or the Beast, well, you can join us, but you have to settle things with the Unborn first. So he agreed, and we agreed, and we met in a session, and everybody was hyped. Everybody was fucking hyped when we were going to meet him and finally get him. So we rolled up with like 20 people or 10 people, I don't know. It felt like a lot, and we just stood at, and the other club was there, of course, with the 2 people or 3 people, and Luke, and he started talking, and we did some kind of. We spoke for a bit, and I said, well, this one's from the Unborn, and I put a bullet in him. And everybody was hyped. There were members there who never met Luke, who only knew the history but weren't there back then, and even they were hyped. They knew they were part of a big part of our history, and they were there to see it. So it was an amazing night, and there's a good video of that on our channel, which you should definitely watch in the link below. Can I say that, or is that more your thing to say?
No, you can say take my job. No, you can say that.
Link below. It's an awesome video. It starts really slowly, and it takes you into it, and it's a good video.
Yeah, it is. It was actually it was a moment in history that night, and
you were there as well, weren't you?
Yeah. That was a good day. What would you say is the biggest obstacle you faced within the club?
Where do we start? We had quite a few in all those years. I think one of the biggest was the divide we had between BC and PB at some point.
Oh, that was definitely a different moment where you don't really know where to steer the ship because it seems to be going down and down. He goes, what do you do? Yeah.
And I was really afraid of maybe not a civil war, but a split between the club. And I already saw that happening slowly, and it was without my. There were a lot of people involved in that, and you can only do so much as with a few guys who want to keep things together. So at that point, I felt like we didn't have control of the situation, and I mean, with Luke leaving, I still had the feeling that I had enough people in my corner, so therefore we still had control on the situation. And at that point, I wasn't sure that we had. And in the end, it worked out great because it wasn't for the best of the club for what we were doing. But yeah, well, you at that point we didn't know where it was going. So I think that's the biggest, the most, in a negative sense, exciting moment for me. One of those, at least.
Yeah, definitely. That's be more in recent TUMC history. In early days, what would you say one of the biggest obstacles would be?
Then I guess the moment when we were pretty big, because like I said, it had its ups and we learned a lot from it, but it was also a big obstacle because we had so many people in there and so many people with different goals and different things they wanted to do, that we had so many subcategories we had to keep track of. I mean, we worked with a lot of patches, and we had a few guys who were the filthy few, and they would do just TDMs, you know, and we had a few guys who were going into some roleplay shit with other gangs, and it was going from A to B to C to D, and we couldn't keep track. So that was at that point our biggest obstacle in more less recent history. On the other hand, there were a lot of technical things, you know, who were more GTA related, like everybody needed to communicate, but not everybody had a microphone back on PS3. It was pretty uncommon to have a microphone. There were only 3 bikes and 5 leather jackets, and that's it, you know, that you had to do it with that. So those things were, not in the beginning, but after, let's say, 2 years, people wanted new stuff and new things to do, so that was back then a pretty big obstacle, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So from your opinion, obviously being a founder, what do you think separates us from other clubs?
The biggest thing is that we tend to keep very close to our rules. You know, we've got a very strict structure, very clear structure. We got a very clear rule book. We always want people to follow it. And so that's organization-wise the best and the most important factor we have. A lot of clubs just, you know, move around to those things and don't really pay a lot of attention to it. We do. We also keep very, very good administration. That's really a compliment I have to give to all the secretaries and treasurers, that they do that very well. And people-wise, we have a lot of people who are willing to step down if needed. You know, I know for 100% that everybody who's holding a gavel at the moment, or everybody who's in a high officer position, that if needed they are willing to step back and let somebody else take that job. We got not a lot of big egos in that sense. And also very important is that those people are willing to let their friends go if needed. Like, I've seen people who are personal friends with people vote mayhem if needed,
or family as well. Like actual family.
Or family as well, I've seen it as well, and just because they knew that was best for the club. So I don't know how. It's impressive that a lot of people got a lot of the right mindset on these things.
It is definitely impressive. Do you think you've taken any experiences from the club? Herb saying he's become more open-minded from church and different debates on people's opinions, etc. What do you think you've taken away?
Good one. I learned personally what I still have a lot of pleasure from my professional life is I learned how to lead meetings. So how to have a meeting, how to organize it, how to do the agenda well, things like that.
Yeah.
And also that what your stance are on some things, or your opinions, that those things aren't written in stone, you know. You don't. I don't mind having a good argument, and I'm pretty well at defending my points and my point of view. That you can easily, that you should change your mind if somebody has the right arguments for it. So sometimes I go in head first with when we're having an argument about something, but if halfway through I find out that the guy has better arguments for it than I do, then I'm very willing to let my position go and say, well, you're right, I was wrong there. And that's a thing I've learned here from other people and by doing myself.
Yeah, so you'd say become the same as kind of Herb, a little bit more open-minded.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm willing to switch your opinion around or your ideas around if other people's ideas work out better. Yeah, it's quite similar. It is.
Yeah. So I have to ask, why did the whole club start? Were you always interested in motorcycles or clubs or?
I gotta say, I was always interested in motorcycles and MCs, but also in mafia and also in criminal, organized crime in general. Just I like to read about the history of it and how they organize themselves and things like that.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm going to join a mafia crew or a MC. And then I saw how the mafia crews were, what kind of people came to that, how they acted and dressed, and then I saw the MC world, and I felt like the MC world was closer to reality, and that only triggered my interest in motorcycles and in the MC world more. So I felt like, well, let's join an MC, and then I joined the Lost MC, which was pretty much just a patch. People shooting each other, people were driving sports cars, all kind of bullshit. And then I felt like, well, we need a club who is less about that and more about just enjoying themselves. I saw a lot of TDM crews who were well organized and shit like that, but yeah, well, like I said, I'm a terrible shooter, so that wasn't really an option. I felt like we needed a club who was more focused on riding around, doing gun running, doing shit like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What plans and rules did you think about before starting the club? Obviously, you couldn't just go in with no rules or no nothing.
No, for sure. The most of the rules were pretty straightforward. No crew killing, just always ride your bike, always look like a bike. Those rules were made up from the beginning and were put on our side or were just discussed with the members. The biggest change in rules has come after a few months. I think I started we had some rules here and there, but they weren't really written down. And people were just saying if they broke a rule, I don't know, nobody told me, or I didn't know that was a rule. So I said, well, you have to write them down. So I started with writing them down, and then I brought them to, I believe it was Danny, because Danny has a lot of experience with those things. So I asked Danny, could you have a look at this and give your opinion on it? And he made some changes and gave me some advice on what was good and what wasn't good. Those were pretty much the base rules that we established at that moment.
The first rules, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think 90% of the rules we have today are still all pretty much exactly the same or pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think if it was the same ones as was on the Weebly, they're only tweaked slightly. Like, they weren't ever really major change. Maybe the wording here and there, and that's really it. They were all really the same.
It were the rules on the weekly, indeed. Yeah, Weebly, indeed. Yeah, those are the original.
Yeah. Did you ever vision it becoming as big as what it is today?
No, for sure not. At some point, maybe in numbers wise, I could, because it isn't hard to make a big crew. I mean, you open the crew, you make a nice
leave the door open,
and you're there, But I would have never figured out that it would be disorganized. I mean, the events we're holding, the podcast we're recording right now, the videos, the website, the Instagram, the action figures that we have, the T-shirts, the you name it, we have it. It's a totally different level than I ever knew it was going to get. That I ever expected any crew to get at that level. I mean, that's pretty. Yeah.
It is funny when you put that concept together. Like, some person on the other side of the world in a bedroom basically made this fictitious GTA club, and that's where it started. And now we have merchandise, we have figures, we have T-shirts, you name it, it's there. It's so weird when, like, it's how do you get to them steps? I don't know. it happened.
How do you devour a whale? I mean, it's one bite at a time, and that's how we deal with the club. It's one step at a time. It began with 2 founders, then it were 4 members, then it were 20 members. Then we started to make videos. I made a Weebly website. Bama came in, and he and his girlfriend, you and a few other guys, started to professionalize that. Yeah, well, it's one step at a time. And if sometimes I tell my friends about what we are doing, and I was at sports last weekend, and I told my friend, "Oh, well, we're recording a podcast," and he was just baffled, like for a game, for a game, it's it's amazing. Jeez, it always amazes me. Yeah.
Which was kind of leading me on to my next question. Out of all the experiences you had, and all the people you've met, and all the scenarios you've brought the club through, what's the one thing you're most proud of?
The one thing I'm most proud of, well, those things that just named, those are incredible, and those are quite big accomplishments who aren't easily met. But I think the biggest thing is that we have people who drive 6 hours to meet each other, and people who they never met. If you put it that way, it sounds weird. But after knowing each other 4 or 5 years, it isn't weird. And I find it impressive that I know guys like you and Lee and a lot of other guys that I've been knowing them for like 5 or 6 years, and we're still hanging out together, talking to each other about random things, talking about the game, talking about it's so much more than just playing around and driving a bike. And
it isn't just moves. Ones and zeros on the screen. There's so much more to it.
Exactly, and it's a community thing, really. And that, to me, that's the most impressive and biggest accomplishment that I brought. Not only I just
together.
That we as a club and we as people who put a lot of effort in it, we brought that together.
Yeah, definitely. That is actually something to be really proud of. If you were to say one person, who do you think is following or close to in your footsteps?
I think it would be a bit of disrespectful for me to say that anybody's following into my footsteps, because everybody is doing it his own way. Everybody has other tasks than I did. And if I would say that Lee, who has been the longest sitting president who we have ever had, if I would say Lee is following into my footsteps, that would be like saying that he is filling my footsteps, which isn't true. He's doing it his own way, and he's doing a lot of things better than I do. He's doing some things less than I do, or different. I mean, it's not like in that sense. Every member is filling into my footsteps, because I started wearing that patch and wearing Unborn on my back. And everybody who has that patch on his back is stepping into my footsteps.
I get you. In a sense, it's the whole club is in your thing. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Exactly. But in a sense, also nobody is, because everybody is putting his own work and effort in, and the club is much, much bigger than my footsteps or whatever. Yeah,
no, completely. So I know I asked this at the start, and it's the last question. I said, is there an end goal to start? And you said, ultimately, no. So this question might be a little bit irrelevant, but you might maybe have an answer for it. How long do you think this will last?
I back in the day, I used to question that a lot. I used to think a lot about, well, will we make it to GTA 6? Will we make it to GTA 7? How is this going to work out, These days I'm not asking myself, because I know for sure that we will reach GTA 6 and we will be an active and big MC there. I can even see that at some point when you are a 50-year-old man and no one of us is playing GTA anymore and GTA 7 is coming out, that you found yourself a crew or with any other members. So I really couldn't tell. I don't see it dying out anytime soon.
Absolutely not. It's full wheels on the go at the moment, and for a good while, anyways.
Look how many people we have who've put so much time and effort into it, and who've been working so hard for it. They don't want to leave it now, or they don't want to. I think everybody has the feeling that they won't leave it forever, but at some point somebody will, of course. But yeah, those people, there's always somebody who will continue from that group.
Step into their shoes.
Exactly.
Well, thanks very much for being on this episode. It was very, very good getting your insight about how the club evolved and your experience as a club and so on. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, not really. Thanks for having me, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
That's all the members, of course.
Thank you.
If you're looking for an MC, please check out www.theunbornmc.com for more information.